Next person, if it wasn't for this chap, I probably would have been a quite little backbencher. But he came to talk to me one day and tell me about these bloody awful machines, and ever since then, it'd be in my bonnet. The wonderful Zarb-Cousins.
Thanks very much, and thanks to SME for Labour for putting this event on, and Ibrahim, cheers, nice to see you. I think that obviously the event's titled "What are the lessons that we can learn from the Fixed Odds Betting Terminal campaign?" And I think I want to talk a little bit about some of the tactics we used. So if anyone's thinking of running a campaign of their own in a different area, they might be able to extrapolate some of those. I think it was we identified the machines. These machines were a big problem. It's about £100 every 20 seconds. 43% of people that use these machines are more at-risk scammers. It's a huge proportion. They account for the vast majority of the revenue generated problems for the problem of at-risk scammers. Suggested there was a problem with these machines. Now, we could campaign against FOBTs, or we could campaign for a very specific ask, and something that we know the government can do through secondary legislation. And that ask has to be the most effective change to the machines in terms of reducing the harm associated with them. And that was reduce the stake to £2 a spin. That can be enacted through secondary legislation, which means that it doesn't need to be a new gambling act or anything like that. It can just be a simple amendment to the Gambling Act, and then it's £2 a spin. So then when we had the ask, it was a case of getting as wide a coalition of supporters as possible. And Richard obviously is one councillor in Bradford, but we built up a coalition of about 93 councils that supported the £2 ask, and they all submitted support for Newham's proposal under the Sustainable Communities Act, which is a legislation introduced by a Tory backbencher and updated in the last Parliament by the coalition government, which allows local authorities to submit a proposal to government to change the law of the country, not just to change the law in their area or give them local authorities more powers, to change the law of the country, and the government has to try to reach agreement. So that's a very, very useful piece of legislation, particularly now we've got a Tory government, and it's a Tory piece of legislation. So, you know, the LGA took up the negotiating after the government rejected the proposal initially, and then the government has to try to reach agreement with the LGA. So that's very much worth bearing in mind if you're running a campaign. And then in 2013, Adam Allnut, who's here somewhere, he was working for Tom Watson. He had worked in a betting shop, so it's very, very helpful to us that when Tom got involved in the campaign in 2013 and tried to advance this issue in the Labour Party and change Labour policy, that Adam had first-hand experience of that. And then in 2015, I think one of the turning points certainly was recruiting Carol into the campaign. But I think this can be extrapolated to a wider principle, which is speak to everyone, every member of Parliament, even backbenchers, because actually backbenchers, they might one day be ministers. Like Tracy Crouch is now the gambling minister. When she was a backbencher, she supported us. Yeah. And Carolyn was backbencher, hungry, wants to do good, wants to change things. Now she's deputy leader, but you know, she's ambitious. Obviously, she wants to do as much as she can in the position that she has. And I think it's really important that you have an advocate in Parliament, and there's been no better advocate I could have wished for than Carolyn, because of her ability to work cross-party. She can speak to Ian Duncan-Smith. I mean, she probably would never have thought of that a few years ago. she can talk to Tracy Crouch, and it's very, very cordial and very constructive. And I think that has been so important to have someone like that on board. And she's run the all-party parliamentary group on FOBTs very, very well. So when you've got the simple ask, then it's a case of doing everything you can to reinforce the argument, to advance the campaign. So that looks like the most sensible solution to the problem. So everything we did then, all the stories we put out in the media, whether that was related to money laundering, which is problematic because of the £100 stake, whether that's related to crime in the shops, because these machines are anomaly, whether that's because of problem gambling. Everything was to reinforce. Adam, you just missed your shout out. I gave you a shout out.
Yeah. Do it again, man.
Yeah, that's Adam. Yeah, so I think those are probably the lessons we might go on to. Thank you very much.